You're listening to the Anchored at Harbor Park podcast. This podcast is sponsored by You Are the Answer, pure sports nutrition products for the pure effort you put into your training.
These products are awesome. We carry them in our gym and our members love them. Super simple, pure, all-natural ingredients with delicious flavors. You can learn more about them by visiting their website at www.youaretheanswer.com, and remember to use promo code CFHP to get 20% off your first order.
Go ahead and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platforms so you never miss an episode. Remember to leave us a review. Doing so helps us reach more and in turn helps us impact more people's lives.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Anchored at Harbor Park CrossFit, a show dedicated to helping you find enrichment for the other 23 hours of your day outside of the gym. Here's your hosts, Jason, Dave, and Corian.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Anchored at Harbor Park. I'm Coach Jason.
I'm Coach Dave.
I'm Coach Corian.
And today we're going to talk about understanding standards when you're competing. But before we get into that, my question for you each is, what is your favorite costume that you ever dressed up as?
Ooh.
For Halloween.
Yeah.
Nice. Favorite costume? Man.
Mine was,
We've had some good ones.
yeah. When I was a kid, I did, there's two. I did one that was like a leopard, which I liked. I thought it was cool. I was like 4 years old. I don't know why I remember that. But
I definitely don't remember my...
And then there was another year I did like I did a scarecrow, and I went like full out, like stuffed straw in my sleeves and stuff.
Nice.
The straw hat, the suspenders, everything was good. And that was probably most substantial for me because it went with my older brother and then my younger brother. We went around.
As a kid, I was, me and my best friend I was a flower girl in my aunt's wedding, so we took that dress and we cut it, and we were a two-headed monster, but she was like a foot taller than me. So and we had been friends since we were 4, so it worked out really well, because just like that fun banter and everything, and like the total disproportion of like size was fun. But like as an adult, I've had some good costumes. We've done some good things for Halloween, so I think that like my favorite was probably when we did like Batman and Catwoman. When we went, because my parents always do like camping trick-or-treating, so it's like this big thing on the campground, so like everybody kind of goes all out for their costumes and everything. So every year we've kind of
Yeah, that was a good one.
done some cool things.
I had the whole belt and everything with all this stuff in it.
I just saw that picture come up on like my time hop. That's why too. It's probably in the front of my mind. What about you?
My favorite one I ever did was quite easy. It was Tony Stark, and I just made the arc reactor out of some styrofoam and some lights, a little bit of plastic, cut a little slit on my shirt.
Nice.
Then I shaved the beard too.
Some of the
Super
simple
easy,
ones are the best.
And I saved like the thing for like 10 years. I don't have it anymore, but I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
I was thinking just like as a funny one for this year, we're just looking for a funny costume. Just get a bunch of whistles and hang them from your neck, and you'll be a whistleblower.
Oh, God.
If you want to go the political route. I thought of that one the other day. I was like, oh, that'd be funny.
Nice.
All right.
Well, why are we talking about this topic? Or why do I want to talk about this topic? I specifically brought this one up because we're in the midst of the Open. And every year when we have the Open, we have people ask a lot of questions over the rules and regulations, over why certain things are used. And it is tough. Last year they had what? For the strict handstand progression, the scaled still had strict handstands, but they had it at
A target, so you had
a
like
target.
5 inches removed.
Yeah. And a lot of people were really upset about that. Like, why do I still have to do handstand push-ups? So I think this year, because the week 3 just happened, they redid Dave said it was 18.4. So it's not even the same week, which I didn't even realize. But they redid 18.4 as 20.3, And I really like that they use the same standard from 2 years ago, because this is what CrossFit is about. It's about measuring. So if they changed the standard but did the same workout, how do you measure your progress? You can't, because it's different. So this standard completely straight up screws me. Like, this does not go well in my favor. And in 2018, I was given a swift kick in the gut when I did this workout, because I thought that it was going to be something that I could do really well, and I was excited about it, and I didn't do well at all. And I know that I was frustrated back then, but I've had 2 years to know that that was a probability of a standard when doing competitions. And Dave and I have worked really hard on not focusing necessarily on meeting the standard, but improving my overall gymnastics skills to match any standard that comes out. And I think that that's really important to understand, because what you're doing in the gym daily and what you're doing when you compete aren't always the same.
Should we break that down? So like daily working out versus competitive working out?
Yeah. So when I first started CrossFit, and I'm sure you guys were the same way, like, it was just about like, how much could I do? How fast? How heavy? There was a time when like my form didn't matter, you know, and that happens a lot when you're trying to PR or when you're redoing a workout. And sometimes that's okay. But if we treat every single workout like that, it's not going to go well in your favor for longevity, which goes with what we talked about last week in our podcast of, you know, performance versus health. And so I attack my workouts, my daily workouts, much differently. I don't care if I'm getting the best time, and I don't care if I'm getting the highest score. Even to my own stuff that I may have done before, what is better about it? I have better range of motion. I have better form when it comes to the gymnastics or it comes to the weightlifting. And then that will translate when I go to do competitions.
Right, it's all about the intent, right? So, in your daily workout, a lot of us have the intent of going as, oh, we got to go as hard as we can, we need to get the best score possible. That's the wrong attitude to have. That should be your intent during a competition when you're competing. In the gym, on the daily, 99% of the time we're not competing. The intent is to move well, to move properly consistently, and then if those two boxes are checked, then it's to move faster. So intensity.
Yeah. And it absolutely doesn't mean that you're not going to have higher intensity, like you just said. When you're checking off all those boxes, you're going to get that intensity. But some days moving at 80% versus 95%, but having quality reps and a quality workout means more than me. Does that mean that I'm not getting any fitter? No, because I'm still burning calories, I'm still building muscle, I'm still in the gym. But for some reason, I feel like CrossFitters in the gyms feel like if they're not dead on the floor at the end of their workout, you know, sweating everything out, ready to puke, that they didn't have a good workout. But then you reflect back on their moves and you're like, you know, now you have a lot of pain, and like, was that truly a rep or was it not a rep? Or, you know, like, what are all those other things that went along with it?
I think our gym's gotten so much better in the past, 8 to 12 months with that. I mean, just think about like Lynn, for example, Lynn Pahlke, like thinking about her. She didn't do the scale just because she wanted to do a harder movement, so she did pike push-ups. And all her reps were all like slow and perfect. And she's gotten so much stronger because of that. Could she have gone a lot faster if she wanted to? Probably. But she wanted to, she's not doing the open as a competition. She's just doing the workouts, and for her it's about, the daily doing things properly. And I went up to her after. I said, Lynn, that was all fantastic. It was so good.
Yeah, and that's what Dave and I talked about when it when it came to my mentality with the open, I know that I've been struggling with like how I am approaching stuff for the last couple months and like where I'm at and like how do I define myself. And I've luckily been back to journaling, all that stuff. And I was telling Dave this weekend, I realized I am absolutely treating the open as a competition. I'm giving my all. With that being said, I'm also using it as training, because what am I doing better this time than I did last time, both mentally and physically? And so I'm not mad at myself with how things come out at the end of a workout. Does that make sense? So I'm able to like, yes, I put it all on the floor, but in a good, positive way with like reps that I can be proud of. And then what did I learn from that so I can move on? So it's like this cross between training and competing for me.
Well, I think competing should always be assuming you're doing the steps right. So you are training in the gym, trying to get your things better, your skills and your movement, etc. So that when you're competing, you don't have to think about it. All you have to think about is giving 100% effort.
Yep.
If you do that, you should be totally satisfied regardless of how the workout goes.
True.
If you're doing everything you're capable of, that your body can do, you should be happy.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard if, you think you should hit X in a lift or a workout, but you hit Y. There might be some feelings there like, why didn't I? But you have to remember you did everything you physically could.
Yeah. And so like I kind of break it down like this. So for me, my daily workouts are about safety so that I don't hurt myself because I do compete. About progressing my fitness, like how can I get better? And then learning and improving on all my skills and moves. Or progressing my fitness as like gaining strength, gaining mobility, gaining technique, and then being able to reflect back on it. For me, competing is where like you showcase all the training you've been doing, and it's not a time where like you generally improve. But some people they'll hit PRs or something else. And then competing too, like it's a sport, and sports have rules, like plain and simple. Like baseball has rules, basketball has rules, football has rules. So there has to be a standard, and they don't always make sense to a movement, but they make sense for how can you measure that and how can you make sure it's fair across the board for everybody that's competing. And that's what competitions are about. And that could be different depending on what organization you're with. Mm-hmm. And being able to know that is a possibility is huge. I mean, people come to our comps all the time. They're like, oh, you're judging so fair and it's so even because that's something we've set up in a standard. But like every gym has different standards on what they want. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. You just got to know it.
Right. And so, yeah, we're bringing this back up because, talking about the handstand push-up standard that a lot of people think was unfair. It is what it is. Whining, complaining,
throwing a fit about it's not going to change.
Wishing it will not do anything. You've trained as best you could, so you go out and do the best you can. And if you are whining and complaining about it, you're already setting yourself up for failure because you're getting negativity in your mind. As soon as it starts going bad, you're going to start doubting yourself and say, oh, I can't do it. And it's just a downward spiral.
Yep, and I've heard I was on reading a lot of people complaining about this standard for 20.3, about how there's no consistency, that the handstand push-up keeps changing every year. And they were like, last year was different, then this year now it's completely different, then 3 years ago is different than that. And I'm trying to, and I was like, actually don't normally comment in the CrossFit affiliate page, but this one guy was just going ranting and raving, all these people complaining. And I was like, this wasn't a new standard. This was a retest of 18.4. So while the standard changed in 19 for the handstand push-ups to make them harder and to say, hey, we tested strict handstand push-ups for both scaled and RX. Scaled had, like we said, the 5-inch elevation. I was like, this is a retest of 18.4, so in order to do a true retest and to see if you've improved upon a previous workout, the standards have to be the same. If you changed it to what it was last year, then you just changed a variable, and now you either did better or you did worse, but that's not a true test of the workout. So I was like, that was my comment, and I was kind of like, everybody's getting all upset about it, but like you said, we've talked about it, like, oh well, it is what it is. Just, if you want to do the workout, do the workout. You know, if you don't want to do the workout because you're like, that standard's stupid, then don't do the workout. You signed up for it. You got to do what they tell you. You know?
Yeah, and there's a million things. I mean, the fact that I'm 5'1" means that like biking and rowing and running and a lot of other things are not going to go in my fucking favor. And then there's a lot that, you know, Jason, you're taller, that aren't going to go in yours. Like, to be honest, range of motion when it comes to squats and handstand push-ups and deadlifts, like, I'm going to move faster than you. Do you want to say that everybody has to be the same height, like when you're working out and compete? You can't do that. So how can you make it as even across the board as you can when competing?
And the reason they do it in any type of competition, when there's money on the line or people's placing on the line, somebody's going to circumvent the system.
Yep.
Somebody's going to find a way to cheat the system, you know, to make it easier for themselves. So they have to make a standard across the board so that nobody does cheat the system, and just make it easier because they know they can get away with it, and then they get a bunch of extra reps. You know, so you'll have some people who are be like, well, this is how I was taught handstand push-ups, and you'll have some people out there who are like, hey, this is how we can circumvent the system. I mean, I've been to a competition where it was a team competition, and two of the people were like, okay, here's how we're going to do this, and they came up with a way right there on the spot because they were up next. They were watching how the judge was judging, and they're like, this is how we're going to do it, and they like circumvented the system on how it was meant to be because they knew that it was going to get them more reps, and they did better, obviously, than most people, and I think they won that competition, but it was like, you did that because you actually cheated and went around the system that it was intended to be.
And sometimes that's why standards are changed.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that's just paying attention to the environment.
But, I mean, you get where I'm going with it. If they didn't have a standard of saying, hey, you have to measure your arm, everybody's going to measure their arm, and then you're going to do the line.
Right, I mean, yeah, it's like football, you have to run 10 yards to get a first down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the rule. I personally don't understand why. Like, I get it, but I don't think it should have to do with your limb length. Like, we don't measure when we squat. It's the exact same thing, but upside down.
And I can understand why they changed that whole wrist one, because here's me, no one can see me that's listening to our podcast, but when they used to do the wrist, like, some of us have like really tight shoulders, and so like my hands pressed out and then my shoulders sunk in my socket. I mean, that's going to change 2 inches. It's so, like, I get maybe why they changed the standard, and this may or may not be a good standard, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, when they found out that maybe some people were not doing what they had intended, they had to come up with a different way. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah. No.
I mean, we do it in just daily coaching. Me and Dustin were coaching a couple weeks ago, and I had a class, and then they started doing something, and he was like, in all honesty, I didn't tell them they couldn't do that. So he's like, hey, for the next class, can you just probably remind them, you know, that this is what we want from them? I'm like, and I do it all the time. I'll think that I said something, like, you know, we go over burpees or air squats or all that stuff all the time. But if I don't say it every class all the time, and we maybe have new people, it's not their intent to, like you said, Jay, to teach a system. They're just doing their movements. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't tell you where we were starting, or I didn't tell you that, you know, you had to do X, Y, and Z for, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, well, I didn't set the standard. And that's what competing is. It's just setting the standards and then making sure that everybody abides by them to see who's best.
Mm-hmm. If you're going to measure, it has to be the same
It does.
thing you're measuring.
So then I think that kind of goes into like your mindset about daily training and competing and where that should be. And I think that having an open and growth mindset is super important.
Yeah, and a lot of people will come in and just, like we said before, just only want to go as hard as they can. Rope climb is the classic example. If you just always never work on your technique when you're rope climbing, you're never going to get better at them. You might be able to get up and down the rope a few times pretty quick, but if you don't actually learn the footwork, we see a lot with Olympic lifting too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're gonna hit this wall of like you just can't get any better than that. You know. Dan, any points? I feel like you've been quiet on this one.
I'm just interjecting and making show notes here. Yeah, the biggest thing with mindset is understanding that you can't get upset just because you come into a competition and the standard is different than you're used to. I guess understanding the standards prior, so really kind of reading that if you're going to a local competition, and then for the CrossFit Open, just making sure that, I mean, if you enrolled in a competition, you know the workout, you don't know what the workout is till Thursday night. So you generally know the day you're going to do it. So just understand the standards, and then you signed up for it. It should be fun. It should not be something that stresses you out. However, a lot of us put that extra stress on us. But just have fun with it. Like if you're not having fun with it, then why are you doing it? Like that's the biggest thing. Is like, you know, like you hear football players say it all the time. Like I stopped because it wasn't fun anymore. Like same thing. Like this is supposed to be fun, and if you're doing a competition, you're doing it because you want to. Don't put that extra stress on yourself and like get all upset just because you see a standard that's like, oh, the handstand push-up is unfair. Well,
and the person who's going to win the competition is the person who gets excited about the bad standard, because he knows that everyone else is internally pissed off and upset, and it's going to show when they work out. He's going to use it to his advantage as it hers.
Yeah, if they're good. Like somebody like Blair would totally eat that up.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, having that growth mindset and being open to that is what makes things kind of flexible and makes them enjoyable. One of the things we talk about all the time is we talk about controlling what you can control and letting go of what you can't. And standards that people set in a competition you can't control. Just like you absolutely cannot control shitty judges or... And I say that in the nicest way possible because I don't think anybody wants to be a shitty judge. I just think that sometimes they don't understand themselves what they should be doing, and that's fine. But if I'm sitting here and I'm in a comp and my judge is making me go full depth and the person next to me is not going full depth, I can't control that. I can only control that my judge is making me go full depth and then making sure every one of my reps counts. Yeah. That's it. It's all you can do. But I think that sometimes we try to remove that feeling from ourselves because when we can say like, oh, well, that person, it's their fault I didn't win, then we can kind of let that failure go a little bit more. We don't have to own it as much because we're putting the issue outside of ourselves. So a lot of times it's just human nature that those uncomfortable feelings that we don't want to feel, we want to put on something or someone else. You know, it's not my training that sucked in the last 2 years. It's CrossFit, stupid standard. It's not that I didn't work hard. It's my judge kept no-repping me. You know, and those are all things that you're trying to take that and not make it your own fault because you don't want to feel those feelings.
Should be the reverse. Give your credit away and own your responsibility.
That was one thing I noticed, totally sidetrack, when we went to that conference a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you heard me say it, but I said it to Dave, the one speaker that his slides were messed up, and he was getting so mad, and he was like kind of yelling towards the people in the back, like, can you guys get this fixed? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, regardless of whose fault this is, you're not being a leader right now. I'm like, you just need to do what you can do. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of losing my respect for you right now. I was like, okay. Because again, like, it just is what it is. You need to own it, you know?
So then what are some ways that we can improve on learning these standards and the differences at competitions so that maybe we aren't blindsided?
I 100% think that step one is understanding what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in the gym. Like paying attention to your reps, paying attention to how you're going. I mean, there's still times that I will videotape stuff and I'll reflect back and I was like, oh, well, that was ugly, or that wasn't to standard, or that wasn't what I thought it should be, like, you know, hitting a wall ball target, or, you know, staying locked out, or any of those things. So I think step one is like knowing what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
And just I tell people this a lot. Just because you videotaped it doesn't mean it has to go on the socials. You can just use it for yourself to improve. But then I think after that is like Dave said, reading the standards when you're going to go to a competition, maybe volunteering for competitions, or going to compete in some and keeping an open mind, like paying attention to like, what did this gym mark as their standards? How did they like to see it? Did it work? Did it not work? Was I able to meet the standards? What did I need to change in order to meet the standards? And is that something that was a majority or is that a minority? Do I need to change all my training? Or no, because that was just a fluke of how they did it?
Yeah, I like it.
And keep in mind, if you guys are here just to get in shape and health and wellness, probably doesn't necessarily apply to you guys, unless you're interested in like RXing workouts and
I think it kind of applies only in the way of like, we always want people to work on their full range of motion and quality reps, even in health and wellness. So in order to not get, shortened muscle use or overuse of certain muscles, it's still really good to know what you should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of had this discussion yesterday about RXing workouts, but like instead of like always going to what, if you're here to improve your general health, and we talk about this all the time, like it doesn't necessarily matter what I write on the board as the workout. We can change any of the movements to your abilities. If you're like, so I guess like don't ever get hung up that like, well, I can't do that. Well, okay, then we're gonna do the movement that you can do, and if that is your goal, then that's what we're talking about here. If your goal is to compete, then you should start to learn these things.
right.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like, yeah, I mean, you can't expect people to just hold your hand through all of it. If you're going to be a competitive athlete, like, it's just what you need to know.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
I think it's good. I think overall, I want to end on the fact that 99% of people, I think, are doing exactly what they need to do. When we always talk about negativity and complaining, I think that this workout being redone and just like Dave said, all the people complain. Like I just wanted to talk about it. Like we need to move on, guys, and not let this like dictate our whole entire life and our emotions.
Yeah, and this doesn't come out as like any member. We didn't hear it from any member. It was just the CrossFit world, and we wanted to discuss it. So we're not trying to single anyone in particular out on this topic. So
Yeah.
All right, stay classy, Harbor Park.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
All right, everyone, that wraps up another episode of Anchored. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to share it with someone you know. Give us a 5-star review on your listening platform. That helps us reach more people. And remember to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. We'll talk to you guys later, and stay classy.
Thanks for listening to Anchored at Harbor Park CrossFit. If you would like further information about our programs, visit www.harborparkcrossfit.com. We hope you'll tune in next time.